Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Bruin Second Amendment Supreme Court decision means for you, for me, for us. Okay, what does it mean for us? Um, Common questions that I have been asked in the comments section, both in the different social media platforms, is number one: does this now mean that I can carry a gun anywhere? How does it affect AR-15s? How does it affect the ghost guns? How does it affect standard capacity magazines? Okay, so these are the common questions I have been asked. All right, so let's go through that. First question: can you now carry a gun without a permit? No. The case actually was specifically focusing on the fact that you need to get a permit in some states in order to carry. So in some places like New York, California, Illinois, New Jersey, Hawaii, I forget which the other ones are, Washington State probably. Um, in some of these places, in order to get a carry permit, you had to show a special need, okay? And that special need could not just be self-defense, okay? Self-defense from tyrants and dictators. That's what I would put down. But you couldn't just say self-defense. You had to have a special need. Um, and in most cases, and I know from personal experience because I've actually interacted with people that did have these carry permits in New York City. It meant either number one, you had already had an attempt on your life, right? I had one woman that had actually been shot during multiple attempted robberies, in her business. So only after she was shot did they say, okay, I guess you do need a permit. Okay, so you have to show bullet holes as proof of a special need. Okay, after the fact. Right? You couldn't do it before; it had to be after the fact. The other thing is, you had to show that you were really rich. A couple of people that I knew that had carry permits, in order to get it, they had to show like weekly deposits of like $5,000 or more. It now might be up to $10,000. Um, that was the only way that they were able to get a carry permit. Okay, so you either had to already have bullet holes in your body, or you had to have lots of money in your pocket that you could, give to them. Okay, that was the only way you were getting a carry permit in New York City. Other parts of the state, it was a little bit different. Um, but what this case did is that in those states, they can't force you to show this special need. So in the long term, it turns the entire country into what they call shall issue, which means that they have to give you a carry permit upon demand. Okay, like here in Pennsylvania, right? You fill out, yeah. I mean, I got to fill out an application to get a permit, but once I fill it out, they have to give it to me, unless they can show that, hey, there's a specific reason why I shouldn't get it. But absent of that, like a conviction or something, they have to give it to me. So that wasn't the case like in six of the states, right? Where they had to give it to you. So now, does this mean that New York and California and Illinois are automatically going to start handing out the carry permits on demand? No. What's going to happen is they're going to come up with all sorts of roadblocks, and you're going to end up basically with a class action suit where the people are now going to turn around and sue the state, and they're gonna win, right? Because now the lawyers defending them have ammunition, right? They can point to a specific Supreme Court case that says that, hey, the words "right to bear arms," right? Right, bear means carry. Okay, so there's a Supreme Court decision that says that they have a right to bear arms, to carry guns in public. So the lawyers now have ammunition. Okay, so it's going to basically, over a year or two, it's going to turn the entire country into a shall issue. Okay, so that's the first part, and that was the main focus of it, right? But and it could have stopped there, right? They could have cut it off there, but Clarence Thomas did not do that, right? Because he was the guy that wrote this opinion, and then everybody else kind of signed off on it. And then actually, I heard today that Alito pushed it even further because he also added additional comments that included into this opinion that are also basically part of this opinion now. So the other important parts of this, right, really important parts of this, is that Clarence Thomas said that the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. Okay, it's equal to all of the other rights in the Bill of Rights. Okay, so that's also really, really important. That's going to help us in the long run. And then there's the other, and this is very important. Okay, the states were these anti-gun states. We're using this concept of what they called intermediate scrutiny, which I never even heard before this case come up. But because what happened is that they had the prior Heller and McDonald Supreme Court decisions that affirmed that the Second Amendment is an individual right, right? But when it was going to the courts, they would look at that and say, fine, that's step one. But then they would go to a step two that they just made up, right? They just completely made this up. They basically pulled it out of their asses, right? And basically they would say that, okay, now beyond these prior court decisions, what's in the best interest of society, okay? So what Clarence Thomas did is, in his opinion, he said, you know what, that stuff that you pulled out of your ass, well, you shove it back in there, okay? Because that's not going to fly around here. So he said that you have to use the specific wording of the Constitution, the specific wording of these, specific wording of the cases that came before it, the Heller McDonald decisions. You cannot just make up stuff, okay? So the importance of that is that's going to affect us with these things, right? With the AR-15s, okay? With the ghost guns, okay? With the standard capacity magazines, and the red flag laws, okay? It's going to help us with all of these things, okay? Because, for example, with the red flag laws, and they're actually busy today, the day after this opinion came out, passing red flag laws through the Congress, all right? So red flag laws, is basically they're taking your guns away without due process, okay? So prior to this decision coming out, where the Second Amendment was treated like a second-class right, maybe they could have kind of got away with it. But now that, like, Clarence Thomas laid it out, listen, it's not a second-class right. It's just as good as the others. The red flag laws, sooner or later, probably sooner, are going to be struck down on that basis, okay? And that's because he elevated the Second Amendment to where it's supposed to be, equal to all of the other rights, okay? So that's the first thing. Now, the fact that he got rid of this whole made-up intermediate scrutiny BS, okay, that's going to come back to the ARs, ghost guns, magazines, okay, because he's basically saying that the Second Amendment, protects guns, right? Arms is short for armaments, right? Which is basically military equipment. They've already established that this stuff, that the Second Amendment is an individual right, okay? And now, for some made-up reason, they're trying to put restrictions on all these things over here. Well, they're going to have a real hard time justifying that in the courts after this ruling just came out. So a lot of these cases are sitting in the Supreme Court. Right? There's cases in the Supreme Court that are sitting with regards to AR-15s, with regards to magazines. Sooner or later, I think the ghost gun case is going to show up there, and what's going to happen is, most likely the Supreme Court is going to send it back to the lower courts, and they're going to tell him, listen, you got to rethink your decision based on this new decision that we have now issued, which says that the Second Amendment is the same as any other right. Okay, so this is going to affect all these things. Okay, it's going to affect it. It's not going to affect it immediately, right? It's not going to be an immediate thing, but it is going to affect it. And those are the key. Those are the key things. The fact that they got rid of this intermediate scrutiny. The fact that Thomas elevated the Second Amendment to the same level as all of the other rights. And the other thing I liked about this Thomas decision is that I believe he caught wind that the anti-gunners You know, because they kind of knew that that the Supreme Court was gonna um, strike down this law in New York where you had to show like a superior reason, you know, for carrying a gun. So the direction that they were going to try, what they were going to try and do is they were going to try and declare like almost all of New York City a sensitive area, right? Because they're like, okay, well, you can't carry guns in courts because it's sensitive areas. You can't carry guns, you know, in a federal building because it's a sensitive area. Okay, so what they were going to do is they were going to try and declare everything, like all of Manhattan, a sensitive area. Okay, and he preemptively said, in his opinion, that you can't do that. You cannot declare Manhattan a sensitive area. They are restricted to places that were historically considered sensitive areas, right? Like the courthouses, etc. Okay. So we got a lot of good stuff out of this opinion that you know that the attorneys, right, the lawyers can work with, right, and it's it's a never-ending fight. It's highly unlikely that there would ever come a decision out of the courts where we're like, okay, we won the end of story. They'll never, they'll never going to come after our gun rights again. That's not going to happen. It's a constant back and forth. It's a constant fight. The analogy I like to use, it's like being in a boxing ring, right? You're in a boxing ring, you're fighting. You're throwing punches, you're taking punches, right? Nobody goes into a boxing ring thinking that they're not gonna take punches, right? You can keep your arms up, you can move around, right? But that shots are gonna get through, okay? So fighting for our gun rights is the same thing, okay? Some days we win, some days we lose. Okay, the goal here is to win more days than we lose. So yesterday we won big. Okay, with the Supreme Court decision that came out. Today we're losing, right? Because they're passing red flag laws and a bunch of other shit through the Congress. Okay, but between yesterday's win and between yesterday's big win and today's minor loss, okay, we're ahead again. We're advancing. Okay, so we're up on points basically, because the win from yesterday's gonna, in the long run, is gonna I think really push back the minor loss from today. And here's the thing: as far as the red flag law that's being pushed through the Congress today, from what I understand, right, from everything that's being said out there, all they have done with this is say the states that already have red flag laws in place get some extra money, but the states that don't have red flag laws in place get an equal amount of money. Okay? Initially, the way they completely threw this back to the states. Okay, they did not try to do this at the federal level. The approach was that, okay, since we can't pass anything at the federal level, we're going to try and give all the states an incentive to try and pass red flag laws, right? So the way they started this thing out and said, okay, these are the states that have red flag laws. We're going to give them money, okay? And in order for other states to get that same amount of money, they also have to pass red flag laws. But then through this BS negotiating that they did, it ended up with, well, no, because they were like, no, that's not going to work. They're like, okay, fine. All the other states that don't have red flag laws, they get an equal amount of money. Okay, so where are they at? Basically, the states that have it get the same amount of money as the states that don't have it. So nothing has really changed. Okay, so it's a minor, it's a minor thing. I mean, there's probably a couple of things in there. I mean, they were talking about, I think they threw some money for school security, which I guess is a good thing. I haven't read the details on that. So they've thrown a couple, but this bill that has passed through Congress, the focal point of it, right? The thing that all the senators were focusing on is how can we print up more money and get it, right? So that's what this was all about. It was about getting more money. So the really the biggest damage coming out of this bill, right? This red flag bill that they passed through the Senate is more inflation, right? Because what we're going to do is, with all this extra money that they're not going to give out to the states, where are they going to get it from? They're going to print it up like they always do, right? They're just going to print it up. And if you guys don't think they're printing money, a trillion seconds is 31,000 years. Okay, so when they say that they got a budget deficit, but we got what, like a budget deficit of like $30 trillion, right? When you think that a trillion seconds is 30,000 years, right? You know that this type of money doesn't exist. There's no place that you can borrow $1 trillion from. It doesn't exist. It's electronically printed on a computer. So this red flag bill, the whole point of this is how can we print up more money and spread it out there? And all it's going to do is basically devalue the money even more. Because anytime they're printing up money, you know what? I see that they're printing money, and what do? I raise my prices. I want to raise my prices faster than they're printing their money. Okay, I want to stay ahead of them. So that's why you see the gas prices go up, the food prices going up. You know, every businessman is racing to raise their prices faster than the government is printing money. Okay? So let me know what you guys think. And you know, this is one of those things that like there's information coming out like every day on this. You know, I don't even think that the people that voted for this bill that passed through the Congress have actually seen have actually even read it. Okay, so I'm sure there's more stuff that's going to come out in the next couple of days. But from everything I have heard, that's what this red flag bill is all about. It's about printing up money and dividing it up amongst states. That's what it's going to come down to. But the Supreme Court victory that we had yesterday, it's not going to immediately do anything for us, right? You know, even if you're in New York, it's not going to immediately do anything for you. But over the next 2 or 3 years, you're gonna start seeing people in New York City, carrying guns. And that's really important because the more people carry guns, the more people see it, hear about it, and they're like, you know what, I want a gun too, you know? So it helps spread the gun culture, and ultimately that's what we win. I spoke about this in yesterday's video that I did, okay? The way that we win long term, okay, is not through the Congress, right? It's not through the presidency. It's not through the Supreme Court, okay? That's not how we win. The way we win is by getting these guns into the hands of as many people as possible and spreading the gun culture, okay? That's how we win. We take the non-gun owners and we turn them into gun owners, and we bring them to our side, and we give them something to protect, right? Because people in New York who don't own guns, Second Amendment means nothing to them. You know, now, you know, you say, okay, you can own this too now. And they're gonna take this in the hand and be like, yeah, I really like this. I want to keep this. So now all of a sudden, when somebody tries to take away their gun rights, it means something to them. Okay, so that's important. That's how we win. We don't win through the Congress. We don't win through the presidency. We don't win through the Supreme Court. We win by bringing more people over to our side and having them vote in favor of gun rights. Okay, that's where the victory is. And that's why I tell people, listen, you got to vote. It makes a difference. Even though these Republicans, they vote against us half the time they're voting for us, right? So half the time they might be against us, but half the time they're working for us. Take that, you know, because if they're not, because otherwise, if they go over to the other side, then now you've got everybody working against you. Okay, so to me, you know, voting for Republicans, because yeah, I totally get it. There's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. They're all just interested in, you know, in what's good for them, right? But you don't want Democrats and Republicans working together on over there. You want to split them up. You want to divide and conquer your enemies. So what you do is you tell the Republicans, hey, do this, we'll vote for you. Do that, we'll vote for you, right? You bring them over to your side, and yeah, they're not going to be loyal, but at least half the time, you know, they're working for you. Instead of 100% of the time, you got both Democrats and Republicans voting against you. Okay, so some things for you guys to consider. It's all about strategy. You know, nobody, you know, thing I said yesterday. When you go into battle, you want to have as many allies as you can. Okay, but you don't expect your allies to all be at the same level, right? They're not all going to be loyal. They're not all going to be, you know, equally equipped. They're not going to all be equally trained. Okay. But they're better off. You're better off with them on your side than on the other side, right? You don't want your allies fighting for the other side even if they're just on your side and doing nothing, right, and being completely worthless like these Republicans are half the time, right? At least they're not helping the other side. Okay, so again, it's all part of thinking strategically long term, right? Because there's never going to be one big fight where you win. It's constant back and forth. It's like if you look at boxing matches, right? I keep coming back to that. Very rarely do you see a knockout. Okay, people win boxing matches by points, right? Very rarely do you see a knockout, especially in amateur boxing. Because I when I train people, it was all amateur boxing. Well, in amateur boxing, you've got a padded helmet on, right? So it's really hard to hit anybody hard enough to actually knock them out because of all the padding they got around the head. So you're not getting a knockout. Okay, you win by scoring lots of points that add up to a victory, right? And a lot of times it's like, hey, it's a difference of you scored 20 points, other guy only scored 15 points, or maybe even just 18 points. You win by just a couple of points, right? That's how you win. It's usually a small difference like that. So anyway, I hope this video was interesting and informative. Let me know what you guys think. If you're not a member of my channel, subscribe. Talk to you all soon. On Odyssey, make sure you follow me on Odyssey, which is an uncensored platform. Over there, I am Pocono Tactical, and on Gunstreamer, HugeTube, and what's the other one? I forgot the other one. Over there, I'm Pocono Tactical. I'll talk to you all soon.